Yeah. The forecast reading, reading through the energy that is happening uh, within and out there today, within our world and out there in the world today, and just reading through that energy and bringing forth the message of today. So each and every day I come in early in the day and I do these readings as much as I can. There's days that I'm not here. That's because I have to take a day off. Sorry, bring it up on my phone. So this is broadcasting on YouTube and Facebook at the same time. Just so you know, if people are watching and commenting, if you're not seeing who I'm speaking to, then that's where they are. This is not, I don't come in and I don't come in here and pull cards for people. This is a collective message. This is the overall energy. It is what is existing within our own energy. There's a message in here that goes for each and every one. If you're not hearing what you want to hear, well, that's part of our issue in the world, is that we don't get what we want. And so when we don't get what we want, or we don't have instant gratification, or things are not going as we thought they would, then we're all like upset, and because we take the world very personal. And so this is about a deeper understanding of the world's energy. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi, Nikki Lee and Felicia and Katie. Hi, and Edie. Hello. Yes, all is well. Good morning. Good morning, Tracy. Good afternoon, I guess now. Yeah, good afternoon. It's after lunchtime here. So it is afternoon. I just wanted to come in today to do our energy reading. So today is also my granddaughter's first birthday. So my little baby Sadie Grace is 1 year old today. We say she's not really a baby. She's pretty grown up. So it is her birthday today. So welcome, 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 welcome. Alanka, Carlene, hello. So we are Facebook and YouTube at the same time, just to let you know. I repeat that again for people. So, but the comments that are on here, you do not see on YouTube, and what's on YouTube, you will not see on Facebook. It doesn't share the comment section, and you can't see who's watching across the board, but it shares the video. So, welcome. Thank you, Lisa and Katie and Tracy and Edie. Thank you. Yes, we had our party on Saturday. So her birthday party was on Saturday. Today she's gone off with her cupcakes to daycare, being all grown up like. So today's energy, what comes in for me today and what we're getting today. Thank you, Alanka. And so today's energy, we have a lot that's happening. I have to watch the time. I have a podcast interview to do this afternoon as well. So I have to do that with a station out of the US. So I'm doing a podcast interview with them in a while. So I got to watch my time because I got to go get ready for that. But in the meantime, what's happening in our energy today is I got that song, The Lion Sleeps Tonight. That song came up for me a little while ago. And so I just feel like there's like some sort of sense of like, this is now, it's a go time. It's time to put, get involved and invested into what we're doing a little bit, but also time to kind of rest in the energy. We are coming up to the new moon energy, and I just start teaching the mystical realm teachings last night, and my relationship to the fays, my relationship to the fairies. Not there's so much out there, but this was how they channel through me the messages that needed to come through. And so as I'm teaching that, I said, it's not something I ever thought I would teach. I didn't think I would be doing that, but here I am teaching about the fays. And so we often don't know where we're going to end up, or we don't know what's for us. You can plan in your head as much as you want. And the more you try to be in control of what you think is happening, I'm going to do this, I need to do this, this is what I know, da 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 da. That can all change in a blink of an eye. Because you can plan as much as you want in that existence of what you think your world is going to look like, but the world can change very quickly, and your world can change very quickly. Our world can. Very fragile world, right? It's like that fragility that we spoke about, but it's a very fragile world that we live in. And so we live in this space and time of when we feel the fear around, we get caught in that whole essence of uncertainty. Well, the world was always uncertainty, and the world's always had moments and times when not moments of time. There's always so let me go. in the world, there's always kindness, there's always unkindness, there's always good, there's always evil, there's always light, there's always dark. Everything is always happening in time together, simultaneously. It's not that it has never happened before. It's like, it's not that when we are exposed to things and we see things happening, it's not like it has never happened before, or that we didn't have previous information, or that we didn't know of it before. The issue that's happening with us now is that we are more awake, more aware, we are more exposed. So we have more exposure to everything that is existing within the world and everything that's existing within our world. So we're plugged into a lot of information all the time. What we're being told, sometimes you need to unplug from that information, because you start creating a reality and a life based around the energy that you're existing within, that you see. So what you download, what you see, what you think the world is supposed to be, what you think that we need in the world, and that's where we try to gain who we have to show up as. But that's not where the truth comes from. Holy, I just got like lightheaded and dizzy. That's not where our truth comes from. There's something more. There's something that is beyond that. And that's kind of where my work goes, is that I work well beyond that whole essence of thinking that I have to create something that is needed, and or that I have to be a part of that world. But that world is showing us a lot of things. I'm seeing the lion's head. I'm seeing the lion energy. I'm seeing that need for maturity. And I spoke about this on my Saturdays live, when I spoke about the whole world's leaders are acting like spoiled little brats. That's the truth. But I don't think that's the beginning of now. I think we're seeing the exposure of it now. So everything that you're seeing of people's behaviors and actions is not that it wasn't always around us or there. You didn't see it because we didn't have so much exposure. So we're seeing a lot more of, like, to really sit back and to observe what we have become, who we have become. And I don't think in the big scheme of things that the everyday common folk has become a worse society. I think we've become a much better society. I really do. I think as a human race, like humanity, in the everyday people that live in the good, in the 99% of the world, I think that, you know, no, probably in the 80-20. So in the 80% of the world, we've become better people. We really have. We do things better. We're much better people. We live better. We do better. We try to do better. We're much more caring. We're much more compassionate. And this is where that whole sense of turning us into enemies and making us into weapons. The same thing, we can take a lion and we can turn a lion into a ferocious beast if you stand in front of it and you tempt it with a human being, which is not in its it's not in its natural element, or you put something that's food for it in front of it and it becomes that. Well, greed, our wants, getting our wants met, getting getting agendas passed, really truly is that same energy. So the exposure of of the other side of people is what has been shown to us. And so overall, but what they do is they use the fact of their behavior as a guideline to show us, well, this is what the world's becoming. No, this is what you're trying to convince people that the world is becoming. But overall, the world has become a better place. We've become more aware. But this is where we are asleep at the wheel. We're asleep at the wheel because we've become so accustomed to, we've now become so exposed to seeing hurt, to see things go wrong, that we pay attention to it for a short period of time, and then we go about our day. So it's like we share something, say, if you share something like what is happening in our world right now that is of a pain story, and then 5 minutes later you share a selfie of yourself like like this, does it, are you discounting? Did you already forget the pain story that we just existed in? Did you already forget that we have many other things to do? Like, or is it just that it's just a part of our lives? And so because it's a part of our lives, it doesn't mean that the whole world's become a not nice world. It means the whole world has become too used to this. We need to have something that, we don't need something harsher to shock us. We need to become aware that what we believe now to be normal is not really, that this is happening everywhere, but we should be triggered by the right things, but instead we're triggered by all the wrong things. We're triggered by the everyday things, or the wrong word by somebody, or like we'll get into a big spiel and a big argument and become a keyboard warrior. Not me, but in general, you will become that because somebody, said something you didn't like. And so then that triggers that response. So we become our instinctual self is operating on this, on a very, like, we're triggered like a match. Like a match can to light a flame very quickly, but is it, and that lights fires. And then, but is the fire intentional, and what was the fire for? Whereas the big things then that need to be, where we need to bring attention, it doesn't get everything that it needs, because we quickly move on. We quickly move forward. And a lot of life, we cannot put band-aids on anymore. So where in your life have you just been like, what are you overreacting on? What are you having response about? What are you just kind of like, oh, well, there's nothing, that's happening, but here I am. And so we're trying to show up in a world where everybody seems to be trying to be something or be somebody. And so we need to sleep a little bit. We need to rest a little bit. We need to kind of rest a little bit in some of our truth. Yes, right. You know what I'm talking about. Hey, Tanya. Yeah. And so bring it back a little bit. Rest a little bit in some of this truth. Where are we as a society and as a world? The human, the everyday human has gotten so much better. We've come so far in so many ways. But we've lost something along the way. And it's because we spend more time plugged in and connected to complete strangers, or to a world that is not, that has no real face value, no real worth. And we believe things to be true that are not truth. And then the things that are real, that have existed, that we need to put our focus in, is that we use it then as an agenda to be mad, to be angry, and to go to the one-sided view. And we have to have a new perspective. How do we be the change that we need to see in the world? And that really truly is what you watch and what you witness when you see people come together. When we see people come together for the highest good, when we see people come together and we band together to be a change, and you stay in that energy, but there's no motive to it to manipulate anybody, that you're willing to tell all of the truth. You're willing to speak all of the truth, knowing full well that anyone that's there will always be there. Always to be there for the highest, always be there for the highest good, always be there to contribute, always be there to be a part of it, always be there to be that messenger. It's like riding the faith train that I speak of. It's like you got to get on the faith train, you got to stay on your faith train. And the same thing is happening even in spirituality. And I know that Mama Guru spoke about this too, and you hear me talk about it all the time, is that spirituality is not a religion. It is about us being the best humans that we can be, and to live in our truth, to be ourselves, to just be. And now you're seeing that it's trying to turn it into a society of some sort, like this woke society. And you got to live a certain way to be in it. You got to be in a certain way, but that's not how it is. Spirituality is a collective of, it's a collective of energy that is, you open the door and you're accepting of all, and you're accepting of all no matter where they are, knowing that through love and light, people have the opportunity to see things differently, to see things with a new perspective, and to be able to move beyond the angers, the fears, the frustrations, the conditioning, the programming, and know that we have our own minds and we can think for ourselves, and we can be within our own energy and our own truth. And so that's kind of what's out in the end. That's what's out there today. That's what we have. But I'm also picking up, so when I picked up The Lion Sleeps Tonight, that song, I also picked up South Africa. And I don't know why I'm picking up South Africa so much today. And I also, and I'm like, and so I got drawn to this video about about that song, and where the song originated from, and how the name went from one name to the next. And that was right before I came in here. But he said something that really made sense. And it was like, and it's a December thing. This was December a few years ago, but it was a December thing. And Olanka and I were talking about December yesterday. And it was the McCarthy hearings. And they were talking about the McCarthy hearings. And he was talking about like that whole McCarthy hearings and that favoritism. So I had to go look up right before I came in here, because it makes sense to the energy today. That that asking for, the the people that are here to serve and protect all the people, being asked to have special services, or to give special treatment to certain people or certain political parties, or to be a certain way, to kind of turn a blind eye to other things. But I feel as if we're going to have some exposure in people who've been very popular, as they come as these kind of favors, these kind of pat each other's back. I'll create a big tsunami of fear story in the world to pat your back to get things to go a certain way. We'll not share all information. We'll play on the fear stories. We'll create this, and then we'll have to deal with, then everybody will be believing that, oh my God, like like Chicken Little, chickens, the sky is falling. Well, all that feels like it's going to be exposed. And what is in the popular is not going to be so popular anymore. I feel like there's going to be a big shift in what is so popular, and you're going to see some of that popular fall. So what is your popular fear story that you keep running to? What is that? What is it that you keep running into? What wall do you keep running into? Right? Get it? Hey, Edie? Yeah. And so I always say, bring it from the big picture into your world, because what exists out there exists within us. And so what is this? What is the picture of this when we look at it in the way of our own selves, right? So what is what is it that is our popular go-to, our so-called, like habit conditioned, our behaviors, our own attitude that we keep going to, that we keep falling into when we are losing faith, when we are trying to, or when we're trying to get everybody or everything to do things our way, or when things are not going our way. Right? Hopefully all is exposed. Yes, Tanya, right? It's like that's what it feels like to me. And there's I know I speak it. I know the Leo King speaks it, which is a lion, right? He's that energy. And the Mama Guru speaks it. I know lots of people who speak it. Like we're all picking this up somehow. This is not, it's the collective energy. But this is the problem. A lot of people who work in spirituality are now trying to make it a part of this so-called, like almost like religion, like organized, like an organized place. Or it's and there was a period of time, even with my Reiki, I found myself like, oh, I need to become a part of the Canadian Reiki Association. I need to become part of that. And then when they wanted my teaching books, and I love the Canadian, like I love some of the stuff behind it, but when they wanted my books, and then they were going to tell me word for word on what I was allowed to speak, what I was allowed to teach, everything in me said, this is control. So you get one person who believes in that control environment, that controlled world, that then comes into a spiritual place and then tries to create it and mold it to fit into the box so that they can go back into the comfortable world where they just left, right? They didn't want to be controlled. They didn't want their isms to rule their lives. But in the meantime, this is a new ism. So the new ism comes in and takes over that part. And then you try to become that. Well, you don't get to own or claim the energy, and you don't get to own or claim anyone that channels through us, the angelic world, or any of those places. You can't own it. It is what it is. And so that sense of like trying to bring that in. And so there's like a bigger need than ever to break free, to make sure people are aware and know that don't ever consider that when I'm in here speaking that that my agenda falls into that sense of trying to turn it into something it's not. It's truly about your free will. And so what's being exposed within us? Yeah, no thanks. Exactly, right? And so what's being exposed within us is our own need to comfort when we're in a stage of an unknown. We're in a total stage of unknown. We don't know, but we never ever knew what was next. We just believed we knew what was next because we start to plan, we start to get organized, we start to think we know, we start to think we have more control. And then the world around us that builds these big worlds in the material world, they start to tell us what to think and what we should fear and what we should believe and how we should live and how we will not, you won't make it if you're not this or that. It's like, oh, if you're not on social media, you won't make it. Oh, if you don't do this, you won't make it. You won't be there. And so that's always this continued energy. And so where are we, where are we ready to expose within ourselves, which is our popular go-to that keeps us crippled and keeps us trying to organize, to stay in this organized self. We're trying to comfort the uncomfortable journey that we're on. This is a very uncomfortable time, but we can't return to the way things are. We have to face things. We have to look at things, but we have to look at our own actions and behaviors as well as those of others. This is not to be laid out as all a blame game. And we can't blame it all on one or the other. We have to look at what we contribute to as a whole, our own actions, our own behaviors, our own isms, what we do to nurture our insecurities or to nurture, our sadness and kind of keep ourselves from feeling it, experience it, and that we all play a role. We all have a role that we play. In More Than Existing, that was the whole journey. It is taking ownership and responsibility for your own life, for your own actions, for what you do, for what you contribute. And then we can turn around and we can say, okay, and now that I'm acting like a grown-ass adult and I'm not acting like a child, so that's the spiritual and emotionally immaturity that I work in my work. It's about us being able to emotionally and spiritually mature. I've been teaching this for years, and now all of a sudden it's the new popular thing is to coach about this. And I'm like, and I'm like, and so this is us about being able to grow and to evolve in that place, because what we are witnessing, we're witnessing people that are supposed to be held to a higher standard that are acting like they're 5, and you're seeing the immaturity being exposed. You're seeing them not get, things are not going as they planned or not as wanted. And I don't mean one side or the other. I mean, across the freaking board, man. I'm taking this across the board. There's not a 1 or 2 to this. It's like, this is a whole system, a whole world where you have seen this happening. And so when we take ownership and responsibility, it's like, how did we contribute to this happening? How were we a part of this? We're not all, it's like, we can't play innocent to when a lot of things are wrong, right? What was that wrong? Through the eyes of my so-called enemy, I seen me. And I write that. And that's how I could expose my popular bad behaviors, which are some of my own actions and things that my go-to of when I am fearful, when I'm afraid, when I don't want to have to deal with anything. It could be right down to, it's like stifling back the chips and the wine, right? When I'm scared, and then you don't make wise choices and decisions when that's happening and when you're in that energy. And so we all have that. So we're exposing ourselves, or we're being exposed because we are seeing it happen on a bigger scale. And because of that, we have to take a look back and say, you know what? There was a lot of goodness here. There's a lot of good things. There's a lot of, right? Like, what good can we take away? Let's start there. What can we take away that is good? But what do we not want to happen again? What do we not want to see? And as a world in whole, like as the people, we've come a long way. Organizations that are stuck in old ways have not come a long way, because when you have to fear people into faith, when you have to cripple people at their knees to believe, then that's not leading by faith. That's not healthy leadership at all. And so when you have to lie, manipulate, cheat, all of those things to get what you want, you really weren't supposed to be in that position. And so when you have to do that, there is no faith in what you are selling. Don't sell me that story. Don't sell me that journey. And so when I was writing my book, I don't even know if it's in More Than Existing or in second book, I write about, I do write about, like, I had a journey through my journey existed outside of the Catholic Church. And I'm not Catholic, I'm Anglican, but my mom was Catholic. And so my existence and my journey with Jesus and Mother Mary was outside the Catholic Church, in the yard. It was in the frog pond with the frogs, and in the trees and in the statues that I would stand up and hold their hands, and I would talk to them. And so it was outside. It wasn't inside. It was outside, where I started this relationship with joy, with awe, with wonder of the frogs in the frog pond and that kind of stuff. And so that existed outside. So my world outside existed in nature. It was more beautiful. It was something. But I remember my mom always telling me this. And she would say, it's like she thought she couldn't wait to go to school because she thought going to school was going to be a much better place than being at home. So she believed when she got to school, she'd actually might be cared for. She might be like someone might actually care. Because at home at that time, not saying that's who my grandparents were later in life. I mean, when my mother was small, it's like she would say she couldn't wait to get to school because then she'd probably get attention, she'd probably get the caring, she'd probably get the needs, because the isms of everything else that was happening at home definitely wasn't. And so she figured that would be exposed and then everybody would do better. And that's what she thought, but it wasn't. So the place that was supposed to be held to the higher standard, like all organizations that preach that or like governments or like anything like that, that we are supposed to be held to a higher standard. So adults are supposed to be held to a higher standards than children. We should have this code of ethics of maturity, of spiritual emotional maturity, where we make those choices and decisions. So it's time for us to grow up. And so in that, she found when she went there, she got treated just, there was a few that treated her good. She said there was one or two, but she says you can't cluster them all together because some were really good to her and some weren't. But that's where she went to school. So she thought she would have one safe place, but it wasn't. The safe place came years later, and that came with my other family, with my grandparents, who then provided another safe place. And so those journeys that you take throughout life is that as a child, you depend on that, but we're adults. So the adult growth and development of us right now is what's important. And children should be holding us to a higher standard. We should hold ourselves to a higher standard. So as children, beneath those who say they are more educated than us, they're brighter than us, they're more brilliant than us, they're the people that run these organizations, they're the people that have studied, they're the people. I do hold them to a higher standard. And so knowing that, yes, you're human, but if you're teaching for us to have faith in you, to believe in you, then we should be able to trust you. We should know that you're going to do things for the right reasons, that you're so mature and so grown up and that you got that shit figured out. And so it's the same thing with us. We have to hold ourselves to that standard. To make the changes that we need to see in this world means that us adults have to hold ourselves to a higher standard in our own behavior, our own actions, because the world is watching. The children are watching. And so what is our go-to? What is your go-to habit, behaviors? What takes you to your not so pretty place? Make the changes within us. Expose that of your own self to yourself and say, I think I know this is a trigger. This is trauma. This is triggered. This is, it's time for me to put the work into there. And that's what more than existing is. That's what more than existing is. I made a choice to choose to grow up, to not hold the whole world accountable and responsible, but to hold responsibility where it belonged. And that included taking responsibility for my own actions, my own behaviors, but most of all, and not most of all, but on top of that, that I also, my soul language says it is not okay. And it's not okay that shit like that happens anywhere. It's not okay that we treat each other that way. It is not okay the world is that way. It's not okay that those that we hold that hold those higher places behave like that. It's not okay that we let things continue. It's not okay that we hide things. It's not okay that we keep secrets underneath the rugs. It's not okay. That when we let things come out is because we are making a choice to spiritually and emotionally mature and grow up, not to create more organization, not to create more divide, not to turn people into weapons or enemies, not to do that, and not to keep torturing ourselves. It is time for us to stop torturing ourselves. It's time for us to stop being so hard on ourselves. It is time for us to stop trying to find another enemy. We got enough enemies. We don't need to create more enemies. We need to create less enemies. We need to let love and light start to rule the world in a different way. And so that means we don't need to be controlled. We need to, We don't need to be conditioned more. We don't need to be fed another lie. We don't need to keep feeding ourselves lies. We don't need to keep nurturing our own insecurities, our own bad behavior. We need to start shining faith, faith and hope and love and kindness and compassion and caring up on the parts of us that has kept us living in the energies that have kept us away from being our true self. And that's where we are going to see the biggest change come in. Right now, we're getting ready for the new moon. This new moon is, setting that intention. This is eclipse time. But we got that. And so when I teach the Fae energy, I teach about that middle world. And I'm like, it's not a separate, the lower world, the mid world, and the higher world. It's not separate. We are, it overlaps. So everything overlaps everything. So everything that we are now discovering and finding out, we're not just finding it out. We're not just finding it out. We always knew it. We have known it for years. We just were not prepared to deal with it. We didn't have the time to deal with it. We didn't want to have to face it, or we were convinced that it wasn't all true. And so now we are finally starting to get to that point and say, you know what? We need to start questioning this a little bit more and to know things on a different level, to more than just exist. It is time for us to more than just exist. And yes, there's a trademark on that statement. And so, more than existing, when I trademarked more than existing, I never thought in a million years what it would mean. But it is taking that ownership and responsibility to come from the dark and into the light. When we come from the darkness and we walk into the light, when we set ourselves free, and it is time for us to be set free. And that there is not a rock that I am sitting on. That is a petrified tree, an old redwood tree, thousands of years old, that's washed up on the beach, that looks like it's a rock. It has that formation, but that we all have the ability to find and to live within more joy. But it is time for us to let's start becoming the explorers. Let's start knowing that these overlaps of these worlds that we exist in, that we live in, that we have all of this happening. And so time is overlapping. So there is no real difference in the time of 1970s to today, in the overlap of that energy. Is that it is not too late, is not something we should forget. It means we should start right now being the change that we need to see. And it means that we don't go back and we don't treat people how they treated us. We start to operate on a different system. It's not the eye for the eye. That's not how it goes. It is not about going back and becoming everything that we hated, or everything that we disliked, or everything that made us enemies, because that creates more of everything we don't want. If we fix the things within ourselves, if we stop having that preferred treatment, if we stop those type of things, then we can start to see that. And every deal that was made in bad faith, right? Those bad faith deals that we make with ourselves, that we make in our own energy, that we make in our truth, is that we have to now know that we have to make choices and decisions, and we need to be honest, authentic. You need to tell the whole why behind it and let people decide for themselves, right? And that's where, when we do that, we will come from a place of faith and not fear. We don't fear the world into being. We have faith in our world in becoming. And that's a different. It's time for us to start walking home to us. Who are we at the core of us? And right at the core of us, right to the original, before somebody decides, or an organization decides to turn people into monsters and enemies, before you get that need, that motive to manipulate, that you think you're going to do the right thing for people by turning them into you. If you just be like this, and how many people do that with children, just in general, just inside your own home? Oh, you have to become this kind of person. So I'm going to dress you. I'm going to mold you. I'm going to create you. You're going to do all of this exactly so that you look a certain way, so that people don't see who you really are. You're going to become what I want you to become. You're going to become the human that I want you to become, instead of letting people unfold into who they need to become. And the more that we allow this, And the more that we fix our own behaviors, we need to grow up spiritually, emotionally, mature. And I don't mean that in a way to be picking on anybody. I mean that in a way that we have to look at where we have been, where we need to go, and what needs to change and what needs to happen. Because we can't keep making deals on we can't keep making deals behind closed doors. We can't keep doing the shady shit. We can't keep all of our own comforts nurtured by our ism self. We have to bring forth our light, our love, and heal what needs to heal within us so that we can be the change. And yes, if you sell yourself as a safe place for people to appear, then that should be a safe place. I hold those who walk in the light of the Lord Jesus Christ. I hold those people that walk and pray by the name of God, and they lead by faith and not by fear, I do hold them to a higher standard. If if you're going to tell me that you're going to do that, then I expect that you should be able to be the good person that was like the man that was on the cross, because he wasn't a fear story. And the only reason why we show that image in the beginning is to remind us that's what we should not want to be. Not to be the people that keep putting people on crosses, that keep sacrificing people, that keep people having to pay the price, the cost, or trying to change people, or trying to make people repay for something. We can't do that. We have to be better. We have to be better. And that's the energy that's coming up. That's the energy that's coming up. Yes, Destiny, just a few moments. So, Destiny, that's my mother is, well, I'm Aboriginal. My mother is Aboriginal as well. And yeah, so I know these stories, right? And so there's some truth. It's not residential school, but definitely organized religion school, definitely. And that should have been the safe place, right? And not all were cruel and mean. Some people were too afraid to speak up, right? And so it's very freaking sad. And this finding is new, but the truth behind what happened is not new. We've known about this for a long time. But I can tell you, I own a federal treaty card, which was taken away from me by the federal government and my own band and the own band that decided to change the rules because, that spiritual, emotional maturity thing that we talk about. And my federal treaty card still calls it says Indian. I am a registered Indian. And then they took it away. And so there's a lot of change that needs to happen. A lot of change. But that includes each and every one of us. We are all a part of the change. Every one of us. And so we are not all a bad world, and we've come a long way. So we have a lot of good in our hearts. We have a lot of good in our souls. We have a lot of goodness in us. We have to find that again. We have to know that's there. We have to see it in people. And we have to see the thought that as we come into this new moon energy, is that our intentions, that we set an intention to be better than we were yesterday, to be better than we were the day before. And that's where we are. And so it's days for us to sit and reflect and to pause, to honor. So I've been doing a lot of ceremony during this whole time and everything, I try not to have opinions and views and to go on that keyboard warrior attack when I hear some of the dumb things that are being posted. I just say, I appreciate people's perspective, their freedom of speech, and I don't want to take away people's freedom of speech, but I also can't. It's not my job to convince people. People have to experience for themselves to know and to understand. Any of us that are raised through generational trauma, and 95% of us are in one way or the other, no matter what race, no matter what color, we've all had generational trauma. The degree of it changes, but nobody walks in your shoes or in your stories to know who's more than or less than in that stories. We all have hurt, we all have pains, but it's time for us to Let ourselves know that we don't have to hide these things. It's okay to expose your truth, but it's also okay. It's also very much a time for us to expose the things within ourselves that we now need to work on in our own selves. What is it that I can do within me to be a better person? And that means that includes healing. What do I need to heal? And that's what you have to ask yourself. What am I ready to let go of? What am I ready to heal? What am I ready to move beyond? Because there's a lot of stories at play and a lot of roles that we all play. Yeah, you can't turn a blind eye. That's the thing with being a seer. I'm a seer. I'm someone who's and my mother used to always say, she says, why can you just not let things go? Every time when I was a kid, she'd say, how come you just can't let things go? I said, because mom, I need to know why. Like, I just can't turn the blind eye. I need to understand it. I need to know why. I'm not someone I'm willing to walk in. I'm willing to walk into them fires because I'm not willing to turn a blind eye. And I haven't. And that's how more than existing came about. I didn't turn a blind eye to the trauma in my own world, in my own life, in my own family. I decided to be the change, not the blame game. I decide to be the change agent. And that's the difference. I decide to be the change agent and to see through my eyes of who I am today, who each and every person were, what age they were, what they were going through, what they knew, what they understood, what they knew about parenting, what they knew about life, what they knew about everything. And when you can go in and look at that and you can explore it that way, you look at things in a whole different view, a whole different life. Is that, I couldn't keep working and helping other people and tell them it was okay. You're not the person you were then, but then still lay so much responsibility upon my mother or my father or any other relative in our family, in the history of grandparents or whatever. You couldn't lay that same responsibility. It's like you got to look at it. You got to look at it from the eyes of who we are today, from the adult, not through the child that existed in it, not through who they were in the past, but who we are today. And through that was how more than existing came to life. Right? Why, oh, why? Anne Murray. Right? Yes, exactly. I love Anne Murray, by the way. Yes. Deep, deep sadness, destiny. I carry sadness for the world. And I always have. I don't, I'm like, why do we have to behave this way? And I used to say this as a child. Why do people do that? I can't understand. How can we be mean to each other? I don't get it. I don't understand it. And so that's always been it's not, I don't have a blind eye to it. But I also am very much someone who I live in that middle road. I'm like, we have to look at we have to be a change in our own cultures and our own lives, and we need to be what we need to be to our truth, and finding our way home to our truth and who we really truly are at the deep seated truth of us. And so destiny, yeah, that's a beginning journey for you. Right, that's a beginning journey for you. Is that now your eyes are wide open. So I walk through this world with my eyes wide open. I have the ability to see beyond what my human eyes can see with my eyes, and to not want to close our eyes. So this is the card that comes up with this. Love in the dark. Love in the dark. And that's Shyama. Kind of looks like you, Destiny. Kind of looking like you. Um And so this is love in the dark and the messengers. And these trees are not real trees, they're shadows, right? And so the shadows of us is that we can convince ourselves that things are real and true, just like so just like all the things in the past, we believed it until you believe a story to be real until you find out another story. Right? It's amazing. We can get such convictions around what we believe to be true until you find it another story. That's how we get conditioned. And no matter how much we're told, sometimes we don't want to believe it until it is personally affecting us, until it hits that spot in us, until we're ready to face, until we're ready to deal with it. So I always say, what we have to remember, this is key for us to remember, Every one of those beautiful little children have evolved. Every one of those children has evolved into spirit. They see things from spirit world with love and light. So it's for us to do things from the essence of allow spirit to work through us, to allow love and light to work through us, to allow that what we're being told is we can't keep we can't keep hiding bad behavior. We can't keep those things secret. We have to, even our own bad behaviors, we have to acknowledge our own issues that we have. We have to fix and heal the things that are within us all in the most loving way, not shame, not blame, not any of those things, but to be the love in the dark. She's not shadow. She's not in the dark. She is a bright light. You can see her full face. She's looking directly at us, and we're looking directly into it. And when we have to directly look into our own eyes, we also have to see our own truth, right? I ask Boy all the time when I hear about things. My brother always thinks I'm mad. And I tell him, I'm not mad, but why do these things happen? People, places, and things. Yes, exactly, right? And so, you know, we are human and we can't keep using the excuse that, oh, we're just human. We have to know that because we are human, we also have some of the greatest gifts, the greatest abilities to be able to do things and differently, to create new lives, to become better human beings. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to be the light in the dark. Light workers, we show up no matter what. We stay in that faith. And it's not about it's not about leading by fear, it's about leading by faith, to only share information, to share what we're reading, what we're getting, to not to create anything that tells someone that that's exactly how you have to live your life, or that's what you need to do. This is about, or that's what you have to exist within. That's what you have to. This is to say, this is always say, this is what I'm reading. This is what I'm getting. This is, you have to remember, you have a free will choice. And we also have to accept that not everybody is going to be awake, aware, and not everybody is here to awaken during these times. And not everybody is here to be in agreement with us. If everybody agreed with us, we'd never be challenged, right? And so there is to be something that holds us to a higher standard and to holds us to our accountability. When you know you can create a beautiful code of ethics. And I hold myself to a higher standard. And I know from what I do and who I am, if I was asked to if I open my door to all the children of the world, which you do, is that you have to accept them with love and light. You're not here to change them. You were here, that place was here to give them a safe, beautiful home, apparently. Or if you had an intention to just give education, then you should have just given education and built the schools right next to their homes, and they could have went to school and could have went home to their families. Like, there's so many things that play out that should have been done differently. But what can we do differently now? Right? And so you don't need to take somebody from their world, from their culture, and then turn them into yours. What's wrong with who they are and what they are? And that's the truth. And that's the truth. So I do hold those places to a higher standard. I really, truly do, because you sell the higher standard. You tell us that you are of a higher standard. And so, but blend it in amongst all of that. There's usually some good people as well, right? And so there's more, there's truth. There's the truth that we know, there's truth that we create, and then there's real truth. And so beyond that real truth, and that's the existence. So let's just be better people than we were yesterday. Let's do things better, and let's see that, that us as a human race, where we are, is that we have come a long way. But now we got to stop turning each other into enemies and weapons, and we got to look through each other's eyes and see that there's a lot of similarity between us all. We all just want the right thing. We all want good things, but we have to hold those places that tell us they're better than us or more than us. We do have to hold those to a higher standard. And that if you want us to follow, stop leading by fear, lead by faith. And that's the truth. Now I have to go, because now I have to go do an interview for business radio, I think it is, business talk radio. So I have to go do an interview for them at 2:55. And I'll share the link. I got to find the link, but I'll share the link. I know it's a US station, but I'm going to go do that. So just rest in your energy today. And when the lion sleeps tonight, that's our song of today that I keep getting. And I don't know what South Africa represents. I do know what's going on in South Africa, but we have to look at things on all perspectives. So thank you, thank you, thank you. You're very welcome, Raina. Thank you all for being with me. Thank you for guiding me. I have no idea why they asked me to do these mornings this way, but to turn it into this type of work. But I trust, and I lead by faith, and I try to be a better human than I was the day before. So that's the best. And put the work in. I'm putting the work in. So more than existing, that's what we're here to do. We are not here to just exist. We're not here to turn a blind eye. We're here to be the change, and that's what we do. Ownership, responsibility, and to explore things from the adults that we are today. Much love. Bye-bye.